institutions of failure to protect children against sexual abuse. Good afternoon and welcome to the World News on Rave 91.7 FM. My name is Femi Olanipekun. Now the news in detail. 116 Nigerians have returned from Libya in the early hours of today, in addition to the 249 that returned yesterday night, bringing the total of repatriated Nigerians to 365. The 116 were handed over to the federal government through the Southwest Zonal Coordinator of NEMA, Suleiman Yakubu, who represented the Director General of the agency, Suleiman Yakubu. Among them were 46 female adults, 3 female children, 4 female infants, 60 male adults, 1 male child, and 2 male infants. Also amongst the 249 who had returned earlier were 52 female adults, 4 female children, 10 female infants, 173 male adults, 2 male children, and 9 male infants. They were voluntarily assisted back home after their failed attempts to cross over to Europe through Libya by the International Organization for Migration (IOM) through European Union funding. Some state officials were on grounds to facilitate the transportation of the indigents back to the respective states. The Osun State House of Assembly has revoked the arrest warrant issued against the former Commissioner for Lands, Fiscal Planning and Urban Development, Muyiwa Ige, over an alleged land matter at Ilobo area of the state. The former commissioner is the heir to the former Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, late Chief Bola Ige. The Assembly, in a statement today by the Chairman, House Committee on Information and Strategy, Olatubo Oyesiloye, informed that all issues had been resolved. The statement said the State Assembly members met with Mr. Ige, where all issues were sorted out. It said that former commissioner had appeared before the House and had stated his part on the contentious issue with the State House of Assembly leadership and members. Moving to Europe, where leaders of the European Union are expected to formally agree to start the next phase of Brexit negotiations later today. It means talks can move on to the long-term relationship between the United Kingdom and the EU, days after Prime Minister Theresa May suffered her first defeat in the House of Commons. Mrs. May was applauded by other leaders at a dinner in Brussels yesterday night after she made a speech about Brexit. She urged them to prove an agreement to move Brexit talks onto a second phase.
I'm disappointed with the amendment, but actually the EU withdrawal bill is making good progress through the House of Commons, and we're on course to deliver on Brexit. And
the next round of talks on a transition deal for the end of Brexit are expected to begin as early as next week. The European Union has said sufficient progress has been made on the first phase to move on to discussing the framework of a future relationship, including issues such as security and trade. In France, at least 4 children have died after a train and a school bus collided near Perpignan in the southern part of the country. 20 people were injured and 10 of them were in critical condition after the crash. The bus had picked up pupils aged between 13 and 17 from a nearby secondary school before it was hit. Pictures from the scene showed the bus split into 2 by the force of the crash. More than 150 emergency workers and 4 helicopters were deployed as part of the rescue effort. In a tweet, French President Emmanuel Macron offered his condolences. And turning to Australia now, where a 5-year inquiry into sexual abuse in the country has accused institutions of failing to protect children. The Royal Commission, Australia's highest form of public inquiry, heard more than 8,000 testimonies from victims of abuse. The accusations covered churches, schools and sports clubs over decades. According to the report, religious ministers and school teachers were the most commonly reported perpetrators, with the greatest number in Catholic institutions. Amongst more than 400 recommendations, the report calls on the Catholic Church to overhaul its celibacy rules. Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull said a national tragedy had been exposed.
I want to thank and honour the courage of the survivors and their families who've told, often for the first time, the dreadful stories of abuse that they received from people who actually owed them love and protection.
The proposals will now be considered by legislators. The president of the Australian Catholic Bishops' Conference, Archbishop Dennis Hart, has offered an unconditional apology following the report. Two nephews of Venezuela's First Lady have been sentenced to 18 years in prison in the United States after being convicted of trafficking drugs. Franco de Freitas and Efrain Flores were accused of conspiring to smuggle 1,700 pounds of cocaine into the United States. The men are the nephews of Cecilia Flores, Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro's wife. The two were arrested in Haiti in 2015. Venezuela has accused the United States of kidnapping the two men and framing them in order to undermine Mr. Maduro's socialist government. Meanwhile, in Peru, President Pedro Kuczynski has said he will not resign despite growing pressure over corruption allegations involving Brazilian construction firm Odebrecht. In a televised address flanked by members of his cabinet, he denied any wrongdoing. Scandal-plagued Odebrecht says it paid Mr. Kuczynski $5 million in advisory fees in a previous government role. Opposition leaders have called on the president to resign over the issue. The payments by Odebrecht were made to Westfield Capital Limited, a company owned by Mr. Kuczynski. However, he said while he owned the company, he was not a manager of it when it received the payments.
Now for business news.
The Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Ibe Kachuku, has promised the National Economic Council, consisting of state governors, that the fuel scarcity being witnessed in parts of the country would end within 48 hours. The State Governor, Godwin Obaseki, disclosed this to State House correspondents at the end of a meeting of the Council presided over by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. Governor Obaseki quoted the minister as saying that there was enough fuel in the nation's strategic reserves.
We know there's been challenges in the fuel supply system in the country, and the Minister for Petroleum Resources assured Council that within the next 48 hours, fuel supply will be restored nationwide.
Mr. Kachuku had also assured the Federal Executive Council last week Wednesday that the crisis will be over by last weekend. However, some cases of fuel scarcity